questions.
Oral questions. Questions orales. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Learned the terrible news that inflation is 35% above target. Again, and after 8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of debt interest. And they can't do basic math over there. The 0.7 is actually a third higher than the 2% target. They're patting themselves on the back when they realize that Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, and house themselves. So why don't they, instead of quadrupling the carbon tax on the backs of Canadians, why don't they follow our common sense plan to suspend all gas and diesel tax until Labor Day?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader has quite proudly and publicly called for the Governor of the Bank of Canada to be fired. But maybe it's the Conservative Leader who should lose his job, because he just revealed his astonishing ignorance of the Bank of Canada's inflation target. The Bank of Canada has a target of between 1% and 3%. And for 4 months in a row, inflation in Canada has been within that target.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems made up numbers.
The minister doesn't even know that the target is 2%. And perhaps one of the reasons why she's missing the target, because she doesn't know what it is. It's the same thing with interest rates that we're paying on national debt. They've said that doubling national debt is an issue because the interest rates were so low. That's why I suggested setting the rate with 10 or 30 years with bond rates when the rates were so low, like we do with mortgages. But the incompetent minister did not do this, and now we're going to pay more interest on the $400 billion that will be renewed this year. Why? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that the Conservative Leader is very incompetent. The only thing that he plans to do, is to criticize Canada and Canadians, to criticize our wonderful country. The reality is that the inflation rate
The reality
is down to 2.7%. This is very successful for our country, and all members should be happy with this. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Not only does the incompetent finance minister not know the inflation target, he doesn't know that you lock in low rates when you have the chance. Remember, the Prime Minister was saying, don't worry, we can double the national debt because interest rates are low. Yep. Glenn?
Yes, he said it!
I told him at the time
I'm sorry.
They should lock in those rates for 10 years or 30 years with long-term bonds. It turns out they didn't do that, and now $400 billion of that debt will roll over into these higher rates, forcing Canadians to spend more on interest than on health care. Why did he hire the worst mortgage broker in the world to be our finance minister?
Yeah. I'm so glad he said Glenn. I was going to say it. Interest rates are at an all-time low, Glenn.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the Conservative Leader is in a grouchy mood today. And I think we all know why. The only thing he knows how to do is talk down Canada. And what he
come on, dude.
Bear is the reality that
the reality is
fiscally responsible economic plan, inflation is at a 3-year low.
That's right.
Inflation has been within the Bank of
These people are freaking delusional.
Canada and Canadians.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Think that you pay down debt by borrowing more, that you stop inflation by printing money, and that you fight the drug overdose crisis by legalizing hard drugs. So at least they're consistent in their irrationality, Mr. Speaker. But now they've been forced to backtrack right before the election on their legalization of hard drugs because Canadians are revolting against the policy. Today we have a motion that will be voted in the House to permanently ban hard drugs. Will this government vote for that motion, or will they admit that they plan to legalize drugs again after the next election?
Let's go. Get some W's in the chat, folks. Come on, wake up, wake up.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker,
Look alive out there, chat.
the leader is wearing more makeup than I am today. Now,
What the hell?
I'm going to ask
That's gonna backfire.
colleagues.
Who told her that was a good idea to say that? You know, that's a double standard comment, because if Pierre makes a comment about that, oh boy!
Order.
Pierre's misogynistic.
I'm going to ask the Honourable
That's a sexist comment.
Finance.
Pierre can wear makeup if he identifies as wanting to wear makeup. Leave him alone.
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, I withdraw that comment.
What?
Can continue with her. She has 25 seconds left on the
What the hell just happened?
The fact is, Speaker, the Conservative leader is phony all the way through. He is phony when it comes to his concern about the economy. All he can do is talk our country down. And he is phony when he talks about his concern about the opioids crisis. He tries to score cheap partisan points. It's just not right, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
Oh my God! She withdrew the comment.
Then I have
The honourable members for
I can't wait for Pierre to stand back.
The chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants against 5 senior Hamas and Israeli leaders. This is a step towards justice for Palestinians and Israeli victims of war crimes. And the Liberals promised to support the ICC when they voted for our motion in March. So will the Prime Minister and the Liberal government state clearly that Canada supports the ICC's work to hold all those responsible for crimes accountable?
the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canada respects the independence of the International Criminal Court. Canada condemns the terrorist attack by Hamas on Israel on October 7th. Canada calls for an immediate ceasefire and deplores the humanitarian tragedy. And Canada believes it is absolutely wrong to equate the terrorist leaders of Hamas with Israel.
Then I have député de...
Yet they're allowing
The honourable member for Burnaby
Hamas
South.
protests to happen in
That
Canada.
was not the subject of the arrest warrant. Le procureur
The chief prosecutor of the ICC has requested arrest warrants for 5 senior Israeli and Hamas officials. This is an important step towards justice for Palestinian and Israeli victims. Can the Prime Minister clearly state that Canada will support the work of the ICC to hold all those responsible for crimes accountable?
Then I have
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, Canada respects the independence of the International Criminal Court. Canada condemns the October 7 attack, which was a terrorist attack. Canada is calling for an immediate ceasefire, and Canada says that it is not right to equate the Hamas terrorist leader and Israel.
the Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, it is clear the Prime Minister is not worth the cost of fuel. Most Canadian families will struggle just to be able to afford their yearly summer road trip. That's because his carbon tax has helped push the cost of fuel up to record highs. Now, Conservatives have called for a common sense plan to axe the carbon tax and all federal taxes from fuel from now until Labor Day. That would save about 35 cents a litre. Will the government adopt our common sense plan so Canadians can afford their summer road trip?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so glad that the Conservatives are raising questions about the cost of living and the lives of Canadians, because it gives me an opportunity to point out that inflation in April was 2.7%. That is the fourth month in a row that inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range. And for 15 months now, Mr. Speaker, wage increases have been outpacing inflation. That helps Canadians.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
That's the Liberal message, that Canadians have never had it so good. The carbon tax is failing, except at driving up the cost of everything. Actually, the government is succeeding very, very well at driving up the cost of groceries, home heating, and of course, fuel. The carbon tax is sending millions of Canadians to the food bank for the first time, and it's pushing the cost of simple things like driving to your favorite family vacation spot out of the reach of hardworking Canadians. While the Prime Minister gets to stick Canadian taxpayers with the bill for his exotic vacations, Canadians are struggling just to scrape enough to take their family on a trip. Why won't they adopt our plan and take the tax off of fuel for the summer?
Ain't that the truth, man? Let me know down in the comments.
Minister for Natural.
If you guys would like to see cheaper gas.
Mr. Speaker, I would encourage my honourable friend to actually read the work that was done by 300 economists across this country, which says unequivocally that 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back in the rebate than they actually pay in the price on pollution. That is addressing affordability, and in fact, Premier Smith herself said she got more money back for her family than she pays. If he really is concerned about affordability, though, I would encourage him to go to talk to his friend Premier Smith, who just increased the gas price by 13 cents, and did so with no rebate and no accounting for affordability.
The Honourable